go.
Just going
Welcome,
live.
everyone. Hope you're having an awesome day. You were live with Anthony. Anthony's up in the East Coast. Anthony, what areas do you cover, man?
I live right outside of Boston. We cover Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, and then South Florida as well.
I love that. Very good, man. And how long have you been in the business for those listening in?
This is my 20th year. Next month is 20 years since I got my license.
Nice.
Yeah,
Congrats, buddy.
I was 23 years old. I was a landscaper working with my dad and just decided to become a realtor because I had been buying properties, and the rest is history.
That's a good way of doing it, man.
Yeah,
Landscaping homes to owning homes
yeah.
and real estate. So let's talk about what's on everybody's mind here, and that's everything having to do with NAR. You're watching what's happening now. MLSs are deciding to or not to
Yeah.
show the commission. It's like, hey, we're gonna play this game. Hey, we're not gonna play this game. Let's start there because the NWMLS just announced last week, or about last week,
Yeah,
that they're going to go ahead and do it anyway. And I was like, this is going to be fun. So what do you think about that first?
Well, I did a video on my Crush It in Real Estate YouTube, and I talked about how I applaud them for it. And I love their statements that they made because they're being honest and they're right about what they said. They said when the compensation is allowed to be shown, when a seller so chooses to share compensation, to offer compensation, that is their right. And taking away that right is wrong. And taking away the ability to post that decreases transparency. So I give them credit for doing that. I will admit, when I first saw it, I, like you, was like, whoo, this is going to get interesting. But I talked about it in my video last week because they're telling the truth and they are right about what they are saying.
Yeah.
And, NAR is in a tough spot. I mean, they lost the case. They get their back against the wall. They're having to negotiate with these plaintiffs' lawyers led by Ketchmark, who, the truth is they really just want their payday, but they want to, just so they can say, we made change. They want something to change. And this
Yeah.
something is not good for the industry. Now, this morning, there's new news. MLS PIN, which is the largest MLS here in New England that I'm a member of, a shareholder of, they came out with a statement rebuttaling the DOJ statement of interest from February, essentially saying the same things. They said, why is the DOJ trying to take away the rights of a seller to be able to offer compensation? So this summer is going to be interesting, my friend.
So where does that put us overall? Because we've got just a few weeks until it's like 2 months until this thing goes down officially. Where does that put us with all the MLSs deciding whether to or not to allow commissions? What are you seeing, man?
Well, I think the vast majority of the MLSs, as you know, are realtor owned, and I think the Realtor Association owned, and I think the vast majority of them will follow what NAR is doing. And I'm not necessarily criticizing that NAR agreed to that. They're negotiating with their backs like this, right? It's a tough spot to be in. But now look at New England, where I am here in the Northeast. We may end up in a situation where MLS PIN refuses to take it away. So now here in Mass, we'll have realtors, like in our company, we have 600 realtors. We'll have them offering compensation in MLS, but then you go over the border to New Hampshire, which is 40 minutes from where I'm sitting, and that MLS, they won't be able to. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It really is.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I think we're going to be in a place where we don't know where we're at for a while until we understand what the norm is overall. With
But
that, though,
that's
go
why I
ahead.
think it's important. If I was a realtor still working every day out on the street, beating the street, selling homes, I would be making sure that I'm very capable of getting buyer agency or buyer contracts signed. That's something
Yeah.
I've been teaching for over a decade. I would make sure that I knew how to negotiate my compensation within my transaction. Those types of things, regardless of what MLS you're connected to, those types of things are necessary and bumpy for a while, and people need to know what they're doing. Agents need to be on top of it because consumers, some of them are asking because they're seeing some of the news out there. that isn't accurate and that it's making them wonder.
So where do we start with that, man? If we're going to outline how it works to work with us as the buyer's agent, just the buyer's agent, not the seller yet, just the buyer's agent. Where do we start with that for people listening in saying, okay, I'm going to represent buyers. How do I outline this? And what's the value that I have?
Well, I think that all agents, not all, most agents could use some sharpening up with articulating their value as a
Yeah.
buyer's agent, as a buyer representative, right? That's something that I think most could sharpen up on. And I think that, I know that my company, both Lamacchia Realty and my training company, Clarkston Real Estate, we are anomalies. I mean, we've had, Tristan, we've had 11,900 buyer agency agreements signed in my company since 2017, as of 2 weeks ago. That's an anomaly, right? But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. I mean, when we meet with sellers, you're getting listing agreements signed. Why aren't you getting buyer agreements? So I think that that's critically important, and articulating that value is important. And whatever agents charge, they're going to charge, and whatever their brokers want them to charge. That's up to each and every company. I've heard some that are now charging by showing. I haven't heard much of this, but I've heard that the idea of charging by showing or things like that. And hey, every company, this is free open market capitalism. They can charge as they see fit.
That's it. What do you think happens now, though, in regards to charges? Do you think it's led by the listing agent side of things with the seller? Because when we're with the seller, we can say, hey, these are your options, but we recommend that there is a commission to the buyer's agent because some can't afford. Where do you think this goes?
Well, this is what brought up the whole dust up.
Well, listen, dude, I have to lead you. So here we go.
I mean, I have no problem talking about it, but I don't back down 1 ounce from anything I said there at NAR, from anything I said at RAS Media, Housing Wire, things I've said with Inman, things I say on Crush It in Real Estate, my videos. When you are a realtor and you are sitting across from a seller, and a seller is asking you questions, you've got a fiduciary duty to tell them what you know or you think is best for them. And in some states, like here in Massachusetts, it is state law regulation to tell them what is best for them. So if a seller says to you, hey, am I going to be harmed in any way, shape, or form by not offering compensation or just refusing to pay any compensation? You're a listing agent. You've got a duty to explain to the seller what you feel is the truth. I personally, as a broker owner for 20 years, selling thousands, we're going to sell 5,000 homes this year. I personally feel if I was sitting across from a seller and they asked me that question, I would tell them the truth. If you don't at least have a willingness to pay some compensation or a willingness to talk about compensation within the negotiation, you are going to deter some buyers from your home. That's a fact. Buyers aren't saying, hey, Tristan, I mean, like, imagine if let's go in the time capsule to 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was 23 years old. If I was moving to California and I called Tristan to buy a home, which I would if I was going to California, hey, I want to buy a home. What 23, 25, 30-year-olds going to say, find me the homes that I have to pay out of pocket. I want those homes. Buyers don't do that. Buyers don't say, I'm really excited to put up a down payment, pay closing costs, and hey, Tristan, I want to pay your fee right out of my pocket. Here, let me do. No, buyers do just the opposite, especially first-time buyers, VA buyers, and buyers that frankly many are talking about are getting further and further from the home buying option. Buyers of classes, different races. I have like 25 Hispanic employees in one of our companies. Buying is a little bit more out of reach for some of them. This only makes it harder. And that's what that's what I had explained, as many other trainers have explained. But there was a couple people in the room that got a little confused on it. And then there was a certain gaslighter in the industry named Rob Hahn who came out with tweets and, oh, Anthony said this and that. And then he had to be a wise guy and say, what college did you go to? So it's funny how the barely graduated from high school guy from Boston beat the Yale legal graduate.
Yeah, well, dude, you know why? Because there are a lot of people that can talk, but the challenge is that they're not in real estate like you and I, or like everyone listening in. And it's easy to pretend to know when you're out there looking in and saying, yeah, that's what I would do. In fact, you know what? No, Anthony or Tristan got it wrong. But if we're gonna be in it daily, weekly, helping thousands, we know the reality, man. The reality is exactly what you said. And if you want to take it, so by the way, Anthony, I went to law school, but I did not finish. I left. Okay, so there you go. I dropped out. In it, I do remember fiduciary duty, but more importantly, I remembered reasonable care. And when I looked it up while I was watching your thing, because I was like, yeah, Anthony, go. You're all right. Rob sucks. I was like, reasonable care is part of fiduciary duty, and reasonable care states you've got to do everything that you think is standard. And if exactly what you said, if somebody comes to me as the seller saying, hey, is there anything, I mean, what are the things that could go wrong here if I put my property in not, and you don't say anything, dude, that's not reasonable care.
Shame on you. Shame on you if you don't. And then look at it from the other side with buyers. You and I have stood across from thousands of buyers. I sold thousands of homes until 2011. Okay. When you're working with a buyer, what about the fiduciary duty to disclose? If you're working with a buyer and the buyer says, hey, I'm interested in seeing those 4 properties. And out of the 4, one of them has a failed septic system. Or there's a disclosure that says it has lead-based paint and it needs to be remediated, whatever. You have a duty to tell that buyer.
Exactly.
No different than if there's something with the compensation that affects how your buyer would pay you. You have a duty to talk to them about any and all costs related to their potential, hypothetical, or attempted acquisition of that property. You have to discuss that with them. It is your duty. So that's what I was explaining. And the way I look at it, frankly, Tristan, I don't know if you saw my video from Friday night, but the way I look at it is Rob Hahn and some of these other people that are saying that's wrong, they are wrong. And they are essentially telling realtors to break the law. And I have a big problem with that. They're basically telling realtors, don't adhere to your fiduciary duty. And I have to give credit where it's due. I'm not shy about my frustrations with Michael Ketchmark, the lead plaintiff attorney. But Michael isn't stupid. When they asked for his comments in that Inman article last week, he gave comments, he jabbed me a little, but he never said whether NAR was right or wrong on the FAQs, because he knows they're right. He knows they're right. And NAR was right to put those FAQs out and to clarify it. And if you read them, it's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah. Dude, I read those and you were right on. You were right on. And I think some people forget that, like I said, it's people that are not practicing. It's easy for them to get lost and make incorrect assumptions or even think that we're the ones breaking the law. It's like, no. Let's get this right. So, Anthony, with everything that's happening now faster, right, as we move into August, what do you think we should be focused on when it comes to procuring more business? What does that look like? Is it regional? Is it one thing that we can focus on? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's tremendous opportunity in this situation. When you are in business, anytime there's trouble in an industry, there's trouble on one side, there's opportunity on the other. And there's a lot of opportunity here, but it comes through training. Agents have to know how to deal with this. They have to know how to answer the questions. They have to know to, like we said, adhere to fiduciary duties, licensing law, et cetera, but also articulate their value even better. And one of the big opportunities that I see is there's somewhat of a double whammy going on right now. You got agents bailing out of the business and or getting part-time jobs and kind of slowly but surely getting out. Plus you have this situation with the way that agents get paid and compensation. Those two things together are going to exacerbate the amount of agents that get out of the business or get part-time jobs. That creates tremendous opportunity and additional addressable market for the agents that stay in. And I don't know if you remember, but 2010, if you look at the statistics, there were more homes sold in 10 than 9 in 2008, but it wasn't that many, but it felt like there were so many more. And the reason is the agents that stayed in and stomached it, and stomach the aggravation of the bad market in 08, 09. When 10 came around, there was a home buyer tax credit. They dominated because lots of other agents went into other businesses. That is happening right now, this minute. So agents need to be on offense more than ever. They need to be marketing, getting in touch with their sphere, getting in touch with clients, I don't even like to say past clients because a past client is a client, right? Educating them. The more you educate, the more you attract, right? You get these fake news stories out there about what's going on in the industry. If you're educated enough to at least talk about the basics of it, how about put out a video and explain some truths about those things? And that will bring you more incoming questions. And you and I do those kinds of things on Instagram and YouTube, and you do a terrific job here for, God, what's it been, a decade, Lab Coat Agents?
Yeah, man. It's been a while.
It's impressive.
Thanks, brother. Well, it's just doing the same thing you're doing, so we're just having fun.
That's right. And working to educate our colleagues, educate others in the business. And the funny thing is, once you start doing it and you get used to it, I feel a sense of urgency when something changes in the industry. I'm like, I got to get on camera. I got to explain this because I feel like I owe it to my audience, and I appreciate the audience, and it's a nice thing. And you've got a hell of an audience too. I would say bigger than mine with the size of this group. And I'm grateful that you had me in it today. Thank you.
Well, man, I appreciate that. So, Anthony, what's next? What do you think you're going to be focusing on next for your brokerage and your coaching platform?
I would say, honestly, Tristan, we're doing more of the same right now. We have been acquiring about a brokerage a month. We went last night somewhere in Southern Massachusetts, and we met with a company we're onboarding by later this week. They do almost 100 million a year. They've got 35 awesome agents. They've been in business 60 years. And I was there. I had the owner with me of the company. He introduced me to everyone, and the gentleman that worked side by side with him for 30 years. And it was honestly touching to meet these people that have been working together for so long, and so many of their new agents. And now we're taking a great company that's entrenched in a wonderful community, then with our company that's more regional, put the two together, we're both stronger together. And we're acquiring their company this week. We had another one 4 weeks ago out in the central part of Massachusetts. We had one in April. The president of the National Association of Realtors, Mr. Kevin Sears, his family, I've known them a long time. We brought their company in, and we've got another one coming up in a month. So we're definitely in full-blown acquisition mode, and we're doing what we can to, capitalize on the market and the position that it's in, and bring more great people into the organization. And then on the training and coaching side, through Crush It in Real Estate, we're doing more of what we do. We're training, we're putting out information, we're offering we do a once-a-year coaching event to broker owners and team leaders, and that's in July. You're invited, sir. I just told you that before we came on. I'd love to have you.
I'm going to put the link in the chat there, just in case anybody's interested. We'll put it up in the YouTube video as well. So
yeah, it's limited capacity, limited seating allowed, and we're almost full. But if anyone wants to send me an email, we'll look at what they're doing and tell them if it's a fit.
I appreciate that, man. This is awesome. Anthony, let's do this again in maybe July or August, depending on what happens, because I love talking to you just to see what's going on in your head, because you see things. Listen, you see things the right way. Okay, so
thank you. Well, listen,
congrats on standing up for all of us. Okay.
Well, thank you for saying that. That means a lot coming from you. And I also want to say thank you for your support a month ago, when I think a few people were wondering, a few people might have been wondering if I did go off the tracks and did misstate something, but you from minute one knew I didn't. And it isn't like you and I know each other that well, but you were kind to reach out. And
now we do.
Yeah, you knew, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. And I am happy to come back on. Maybe we do it late July before Inman or something, and or early August before the changes, and have a conversation then.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And everyone else, thank you so much. Follow Anthony. I put up the link too. If you have questions about his event, it's right there. Anthony, where do people go and follow you to get the most of you?
Instagram is definitely the #1 place to follow me. It's AJ Lamacchia, at AJ Lamacchia. The other place, if they want to get a little bit of laughter and maybe think I was a teenager a little bit a few weeks ago, follow me on Twitter. Tristan saw some of my tweets to the gaslighting person in our industry who lacks facts, but I've been hitting him very hard on Twitter, and I'm toning it down now because it's kind of over with. But you know, when you mess with a bull, you get the horns. And if you want to get some laughs, go on Twitter, scroll my tweets and replies over the last month, and I'm sure you'll get some giggles out of it. Thank you, folks.
I appreciate you, buddy. I just put in your Instagram there. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Anthony.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.